let's just say someone is, in a medical space where they need somebody to make decisions on their behalf, and it kind of gives instruction for what their desire is. Is that right?
Yes, and that's one of the more important parts is because we don't talk about it. If with you doing an estate plan, that pretty much you are writing out what you would want done, and then family members would not have to wonder what would mom want, what would dad want, what are we supposed to do here, what are we supposed to do there. Trying to think like mom and dad, you wouldn't have to do that if we took the time to write those things out.
What's good, everybody? This is Pastor Debleaire Snell, excited to welcome you to this weekend's version of the Weekend Exhale with BOL. Tonight is a Covenant 28 night, and I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, for those who are new, this is a new series of conversations that we just launched, and it's really equipping and giving God's people all the tools that they need to rightly manage and master the financial assets that God has placed underneath your stewardship. It is based upon the promise that we get in Deuteronomy chapter 28, where God lays out some covenant promises to those who walk in obedience with him. Let me share with you just some of those promises from Deuteronomy 28. The Bible says, "Now it shall come to pass, if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all his commandments, which I command you today, and the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you, because you obey the voice of the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the country. The Lord will command the blessings on you in your storehouses and in all to which you set your hand, and he will bless you and the land which the Lord your God is giving you. The Lord will open to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. You shall lend to many nations, but shall not borrow. And the Lord will make you the head and not the tail. You shall be above only and not beneath, if you heed the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you today, and be careful to observe them." So again, there are a whole litany of covenant blessings that God promises financially to those who walk in obedience to him. Now, here on Covenant chapter 28, what we don't do is we don't endorse the love of money, greed, hoarding, or materialism. But we do believe that God has called us to walk in abundance. And when we rightly use the resources God has given us, we're able to be a blessing to others, and we're able to grow the work of God. And so tonight, friends, we're going to jump into something that is critical. Now, do me a favor. Make sure that you right now act as a digital disciple, an Apple apostle, an electronic evangelist. Even if you have the Android anointing, you can still help, because this is going to be one of the most transformative and powerful conversations that you've ever been a part of. Now, tonight, what we're going to be talking about is estate planning. Now, listen, do not turn this off. This is not a conversation for old people or elderly people or seasoned people. It is a conversation for all people. And so I want to encourage you to make sure that you stay by, because you're going to get some things that are going to help you and bless you. I'm excited tonight to have as our guest Miss Eloise Bale. Miss Bale has actually worked for the South Central Conference for the last 23 years. She is also certified in trust services, having received her certification through the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists, and she's maintained that certification for the last 13 years. She's been married to her wonderful husband, Dwayne, my brother, for the last 36 years, and together they have 4 amazing young adult children who are doing great things in their own right. Miss Eloise, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
All right, so as we get ready to get into this thing tonight about estate planning, first of all, tell us a little bit about how you developed this burden to give this transformative information to the body of Christ and equip us in this way?
Well, I used to work for a law firm, and I did estate planning.
Okay.
And I thought once I left the law firm that I was going to get away from that.
Okay.
But when I was hired for South Central Conference,
Right.
I was asked to work in trust services.
Where you? Oh man.
I was like, oh my goodness.
It just shows nothing in life is wasted when your steps
Right.
are ordered by God. Yeah.
And then I'm saying, okay, trust services, we have a director. The director can handle all of that. But then they North American Division changed the standards.
Okay.
So the standards are, if anyone works in trust services department, they have to be certified.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, Lord.
Yeah.
So here we go again.
Here
So
you go
that's
again.
how I end up working with trust services.
Yeah, and so for those who may not know, I remember you walked Gianna, my wife, and I through this process
Yes.
of getting our will developed once we started our family.
Yes.
And matter of fact, we're going to be coming to see you soon because we need to make some adjustments and updates based on just where things are in our world. And so you've been
Okay.
very helpful to our family. And so that's one of the reasons I was very excited to have you come and be a
Yes.
part of the program tonight.
Okay.
All right. So let's get into it tonight. So people hear estate planning. Some may yawn, say this is not for me when I get older. But can you just give us a working definition of what estate planning actually is?
You know, many people make estate planning sound very difficult.
Yeah.
But pretty much estate planning is the assets that God blessed you with. If you pass, what happens to those assets?
Yeah.
And pretty much estate planning is just writing down on a piece of paper
Yeah.
what you want to happen with your assets.
Yeah.
That's estate planning in a nutshell.
And it's funny because we get all weird, when we have this conversation. But isn't it amazing because Ecclesiastes 9 says, the living know that they shall die. It's one of the core verses, to our
Yes.
belief. So we know this is happening. We know this day is coming. I mean, they say the only two things that are guaranteed is death and taxes in some way.
True.
So we know it's happening, but we just kind of tend to be a little tentative about talking about it. So quick question though. Do you feel like estate planning, is it biblical?
Yes,
Okay.
most definitely.
Lay it out for us.
So of course, God, he we got rewards in heaven.
Yeah.
And then when you look at
Oh, wow. Heaven is estate planning. Oh, man, that's
yes.
God planning
Yes.
for our future. Oh, wow. I never thought
And
about it
then
like
when
that.
you look at when Abraham received
Go ahead and
all
put that in the chat. Heaven is estate planning. It's God
Yes.
preparing a mansion.
Yes.
And salvation is an inheritance.
That is true.
That's it. I love it. I love it. I
and
love
then Abraham, he received land. And then we talk about the prodigal son.
Yeah.
He received an inheritance. So
That's true.
inheritance is all throughout the Bible.
Yeah, so this is not a new concept. This is not a 19th or 20th century idea. It's ancient. I believe Proverbs 13:22 says,
Yes.
a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And even when I think about when Jacob was about to die, I believe it was in Genesis 49, what he does is he calls all of his sons by his bedside. He begins to bless them. He forgives them. But then he gives like very clear direction. He's like, man, don't let me, be buried here in Egypt. Tells them where to bury him. Tells them, what cave, when it was purchased, and what was left to us by our forefathers. And so you actually see this as a prudent, wise practice throughout the entirety of Scripture. And so that's why I think it's worth us having a conversation, not just as a legal or financial process, but just kind of realizing that there's actually roots in the Word of God
Yes.
as it comes down to estate planning. All right. So let me ask you this, Eloise. So I read something very interesting when it talks about the percentage of African Americans who probably don't even have a will or have not engaged in any type of estate planning. So, I think it said about 65 to 70% of African Americans don't even have a will that gives instructions about what is to be done in their demise. And I'm sure you engage with a lot of people.
Yes.
Can you tell us maybe why some of our people have a little bit of apprehension or anxiety about saying, let's go ahead and write this down and settle this matter while I am in clear and good thinking and in good mind today?
Some of it is because they don't understand.
Okay.
And then some of it is procrastination. And I know when we would educate, go around doing education about estate planning,
Okay.
people would say, if I do that, that means that I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And it's just something that we
Yeah.
don't want to talk about.
Sure.
And so that adds to the procrastination of people not wanting to talk about it.
Yeah, the term you use, I think, is very appropriate because some are saying, "Well, I'll get to it later," or perhaps they think it is the work that is to be done maybe once I get really old, or I can maybe see the end coming. When the truth is, like even James says to us, he talks to us about presumption and kind of saying what I'm going to do 2 months from now or 2 years from now. And really the whole idea is whatever is critical and urgent, it needs to be done today.
Correct.
Simply because tomorrow is not promised to us. We hear that preached all the time. Yeah. And so it's funny because like even studies show it hits us probably a little bit more disproportionately than the larger culture, but still by and large, people as a whole, really don't want to have that conversation. Why do you think people just in general are kind of slow about saying, all right, what's the plan for when you die, mom, dad, or, son's daughter, this is what I want to happen in the event that my demise happens. Why do you think there's such awkwardness about having that conversation?
A lot of us have sat down and talked about that, and I think it's, again, poor education.
Poor education. Okay.
And then a lot of people, I don't understand why we don't want to talk about death because it's a part of life.
Yeah.
But we don't want to talk about those things. We're afraid to talk about it. And I think once we just sit down and educate ourselves more, it'll become easier for us to talk about.
Okay. And so even with getting a will, it's not just saying, okay, this is what this person gets or this is what that person gets. It also kind of describes maybe funeral process. And then also, let's just say someone is, in a medical space where they need somebody to make decisions on their behalf, and it kind of gives instruction for what their desire is. Is that right?
Yes, and that's one of the more important parts is because we don't talk about it. If with you doing an estate plan, that pretty much you are writing out what you would want done, and then family members would not have to wonder what would mom want, what would dad want, what are we supposed to do here, what are we supposed to do there. Trying to think like mom and dad, you wouldn't have to do that if we took the time to write those things out.
Yeah, and I think that's really critical. Even as a pastor, I've dealt with some families in end of life scenarios, and there is just the impending grief of mom or dad being in a hospital in a sedated state or a coma or a vegetative state, and it's a lot of presumption. It's a lot of guesswork. And some are saying, we got to really have faith and keep them on, the ventilator. Others are saying, no, it's time. And the truth is what a parent or grandparent does is they remove that conflict and tension from their children and grandchildren because they've already kind of stated what their desire is under scenario A, B, C, or D. And, one of the things I've seen is that those scenarios can fracture families in a temporary way, some in a lasting way, simply because those decisions were left up to chance when they should have been, those intentions should have been made known. So let me ask you this question. In terms of this being successful, is that a conversation that kids or should kind of broach or launch with their aging parents? Or is that the responsibility of the parents to call the kids aside and say, okay, I'm 50 now, I'm 60, I'm 70, these are the things that I want to take place in the event that I am called to take my rest?
I think it's a thing that the parents should do.
Okay.
But I'm seeing more that our children helping the parents to make those decisions, or bringing up to talk about estate planning. Mom, Dad, have you done this? Have you done that? And they'll say, no, I haven't really thought about it. But you would, but in this day and time, once we get to proper education, I think the parents should actually call the children together and let's sit down and let's talk about estate planning.
So question, is it a matter of, should they designate one child that perhaps they deem responsible, trustworthy with that responsibility, or should they bring everybody together collectively and kind of lay out the plan in the hearing of everyone so that everybody's seeing the same thing, hearing the same thing, understanding the same thing, so as not to create distrust amongst maybe that designated sibling? Is there any thought on that?
I think it depends on your family makeup.
Yeah, it's a little different for every
because
family.
sometimes if you do bring the family together and you start talking about what your wishes are and what you're thinking,
Right.
it actually can start a family feud. So I just think as parents, you do know your children, and you know who will be able to handle different things.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think sometimes as parents, they may need to do that part on their own.
Okay.
But I do think that you should come together and talk about, I am considering doing estate planning.
Sure.
And so that I will have all my wishes laid out, but whatever I decide, those will be the decisions of where I want things to go.
Man, the Bible says that a good man, a good woman leaves an inheritance for the other generations to come behind them. And I'm excited that we're having this conversation tonight about estate planning. And we try to bring in some experts to ensure that we are giving you, data-backed practices and principles that will help you as you look to navigate this very tricky area of life. There's so much to look into that for each and every one of us. And this is a needed conversation, especially in our community, that we don't have often enough. So tag a friend, text a link to somebody, let them know that this is happening. It's not too late for them to join us. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
So, but you do think that there is perhaps an appropriate time for children to generate that conversation if the parent has not?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Is it something they should do in stages, perhaps maybe bringing it up or kind of planting the seed and revisiting it at a later time? Or, should the child just call a meeting and just kind of lay it out and say, all right, Mom, Dad, where are the papers? How do we go about this? What's the plan? Is there a path that you've seen that's more effective and gentle and compassionate toward maybe a parent who is not as comfortable having that dialogue?
I see a lot of young people wanting their parents to get the documents done because they're aging. Some, they're starting to see some dementia or something like that, and then they want to really talk about it. But I wish that many people would start talking about these things while the parent is coherent, there's no issues going on, and they think clearly, and they're able to share what they want done.
Yeah.
And then once they get their documents done, over a period of time, just review those documents to make sure that everything is still in place.
Yeah. So, in God willing, you have healthy parents that live a long time. Is that a conversation that should probably have, let's just say, happen every 5 years, every 10 years, as things change, as assets grow, or maybe they decline, as different members are added to the family? Is it something that needs to be revisited and updated?
Oh, yes. We encourage our members to make sure you check your documents every 5 to 10 years.
Every 5 to 10 years.
Because
Okay.
life happens. And the things that you have in place, sometimes it could be family members may have passed, or people that you have elected may probably have moved away.
Gotcha.
And they are not able to handle those responsibilities. So many things can play a part in that. So yes, we do recommend that you review your documents every 5 to 10 years.
Okay. So where, I know it's kind of a specific question, where should those types of documents be stored, kept? How should they be managed?
We recommend a fireproof file cabinet
Okay.
or a safety deposit box.
Yeah.
And then sometimes if we do documents for you, we can actually house those in our office.
Okay. So now you work, so, we're talking now in the context of our church denomination, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, you do that not just for those who work for the conference, but for the members as well, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, does every conference have such a department, or is that unique to South Central Conference?
Most of the conferences do have
Okay.
trust services that will provide the same similar service.
Same service. Okay, good. All right, so let me ask you this question. What are some of the dangers? All right, you're kind of saying, well, listen, man, you can't take none of this stuff with you when you die. It won't go with me to heaven. What's the big deal? I don't really see why this is such a priority. What are some of the dangers of not really being intentional with estate planning?
One of the main dangers is you don't want the state
Yeah.
to receive the assets that
Yeah.
God has blessed your mom
Yeah.
or your dad with. And the other thing is if you don't
So in the event when we don't lay it out, when we're not specific, there is a considerable likelihood that those assets that should be blessing future generations fall under or into the hand or the control of the state.
They could.
Okay.
Yes, they could.
Yeah.
And then not only that, if we don't, as parents, if we don't do an estate plan, then there, once again, is the family feud.
Sure.
Everybody, well,
family feud.
mama would want me to have this. Daddy
Yeah.
would have, so it's best that if we do an estate plan, we can alleviate all of that drama.
Yeah. One of the worst nights of my life was there was a funeral for a family that we had served earlier that day, and they invited me to come by their home for a family gathering later that evening. I wasn't sure why it was, but I thought it was just kind of, just a final moment to, perhaps admonish before everybody traveled home. But I found out that they wanted me to come, I guess, to bring some peace to what was about to be a very tense conversation about the division of assets. And needless to say, that was when my eyes were truly open to say, all right, Gianna, we need to kind of make sure we make the case and that we are painfully clear on, our expectations. Now, it's not like we have millions of dollars, what I'm saying, to leave, but we just don't want to leave that kind of discord, that kind of strife. I mean, literally, I was there for probably, it was close to midnight.
Wow.
And I was finally like, family, I have gone with you as far as I can go with you on this. You all are probably going to have to sit down with an attorney, because at this point, I was still a fairly young pastor at the time, and I was just like, this is way out of my wheelhouse. But essentially, the sadder part was not me being there late, was just being able to see what this was about to do to a family. They're already grieving. There are a lot of expenses that are poured out upon you suddenly, within a week. And now, this division over assets, I was like, I would never want that to be me and my siblings, or I would never, ever want this to be our children. And I think, that legacy is worth preserving. I think it can be done within an hour and a half of just sitting down and saying, this is where it should go.
And actually, the documents, it doesn't take that long
It doesn't.
to do.
Yeah,
It
I didn't
really
notice
does.
it. It's funny because, so when you talk about the 5-10 years, Gianna and I, we just looked at ours recently. And we were like, okay, wow, this, it felt like a big thing when we were first doing it. We were just like, it's like 5 pages, maybe, and it was very clear and laid out. And we just need to revisit it based on just kind of where we are in our journey of life right now.
And so, and statistics say that once you go ahead and do your documents, you actually live longer.
You live longer, yeah.
Because you don't have all that stress and
Yeah.
of trying to wonder what would happen and
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. So if you go ahead and get those documents taken care of.
Yeah. Wow. So, one of the things I've seen, and even our ministry, Breath of Life, has been the beneficiary of it. So that there's some individuals, and they live amongst a very broad financial range, who say, okay, this is what I want to leave behind to take care of my children or grandchildren. But, I don't want just everything to just go for that purpose. They say, listen, I want to be a blessing to my church. There are people that leave assets to Breath of Life or maybe the South Central Conference. If somebody wanted to say, all right, there is a cause and I want to leave something for a particular cause, a church, a ministry, or of the sort, is that something that people are able to do? And how would they begin that process?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We have that all the time.
Okay.
When you are doing your estate planning documents, you just mention it in your estate plan.
Yeah.
And the attorneys will make sure that that information is written there.
Yeah.
And then once the person passes, they will contact the individuals to let them know that that a bequest has been sent
Yeah.
to the organization.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of putting it in your will. It's not a separate process or series of documents. You just lay that out and identify it there in the will.
Yes.
Okay.
It's no different than you saying, oh, I want my children to have 50% of my estate. You may say, I want South Central Conference to have 10%. I want Breath of Life to have 10%. It's just that easy.
Okay, all right. So now as we get ready to land the plane, I told you, man, it's a good conversation. It goes by really, really quickly. What does good or successful estate planning look like? For those who are looking at it and saying, okay, what does that mean? How does that function? When you see a well done will or successful estate planning, what does that look like?
Once you just basically do an estate plan, if you have everything in it, it makes it easier for your family.
Gotcha.
They don't have to guess who's supposed to do what, because then when you do your estate plan, you will list who your personal representative is, who the alternate would be, in case if anything should happen. And then also we have power of attorneys that we do, which power of attorneys go in effect when they are signed.
All right, tell us what a power of attorney is,
Okay.
just for the sake of those who may not know.
Okay, a power of attorney is when a person is someone that assists with a person's finances, and that's when the person is alive.
Gotcha. Okay.
And once that person dies, the power of attorney actually dies.
Okay.
And a lot of people say, well, I don't think I need a power of attorney. Well, a lot of times you do, because it may be that you might be sick.
Yeah.
And you need to take care of some financial stuff. And
Gotcha.
even if you can't, if you're not able to do that, then a person that you have appointed can take care of that information for you.
Okay. Wow. So let me ask you this. So now again, we're talking in the context of South Central Conference, but just say the person's listening. Maybe they're not a part of our church or faith tradition, but they want to begin this process. They need to kind of step one, to begin the journey of estate planning. What are some simple, easy ways, just for those who are not under the covering of a conference like ours? How do they begin that journey of estate planning?
I recommend they can reach out to us.
Okay.
Because even though the person is not a member of South Central Conference, we will still do documents for them.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
But the only difference is they would just have to pay up front.
Gotcha.
But we do educate them
and
share information with them. And if they don't want to come to us, I just recommend either reaching out to an attorney, because some attorneys will talk to you.
What kind of attorney?
Estate planning attorney.
An estate planning attorney specifically?
Yes,
Gotcha.
and they will talk to you and give you some counsel on how to begin. And then, of course, you can Google.
Yeah.
And Google has a lot of information for educating, just getting you started. And then, they can reach out to us at South Central Conference, or they can reach out to an estate planning attorney.
Okay, good. So, Ms. Eloise, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, maybe to get more information, guidance, or counsel, or even engage in your services, how would somebody find you or reach out to you?
They can contact me to South Central Conference, 615-226-6500, extension 132. And I will be more than happy to talk to them about estate planning.
All right. So do me a favor, as we get ready to close, would you look into that camera and just give any final words of encouragement, instruction, just to that person who maybe they're still in the valley of decision, still trying to figure it out. Maybe they're on the precipice. They just need one last push. Can you give a final word of encouragement?
My final word of encouragement would be, please start preparing to deal with the assets that God has blessed you with. God has been so good to many of us, and basically doing estate planning is not as hard as we think it is. And so I would encourage you to do not wait till a disaster comes. Don't wait until a family member is extremely sick and can't make decisions on their own. I just encourage you, please, please, please start talking about estate planning with your family.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Eloise. It was a great joy to have you here with us in the Breath of Life studio today.
Thank you for having me.
Good, good, good. Listen, I pray that the same way this blessed, helped, and energized me, I pray that it blessed, helped, and is energizing you simultaneously. So do me a favor, man, as this conversation has perhaps informed you, filled in some information gaps. Again, just go ahead and hit the share button if you're on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, copy the link. Send it to somebody that they might be blessed in this dialogue and in this informative conversation as well. And again, we thank you all so much for joining us on this episode of Covenant 28. Again, we simply believe that as you walk with God, as you through faith become heirs of the promises made to Abraham, all of those precious promises God laid out in Deuteronomy chapter 28, they do apply to you. You are a candidate for these blessings. And before we close tonight, just a quick disclaimer. Our goal tonight was not to endorse any particular estate planning entity. We simply wanted to provide some examples for the purpose of our conversation. But if you want to begin that process, we encourage you to do your own research. Let God guide you, but make sure that you prioritize this critical component of your life's journey. God bless you.
Well, I hope that this was good and it was rich for you. Do me a favor right now. Go ahead and make sure you have your notes, your one-liners, your takeaways already jotted down to the side. And be sure to not just post that takeaway, but also the link to today's episode so that you can share it with someone else. I'm telling you, this is a share that works. When people see that one-liner, they're going to say, whoa, where did you get that nugget of wisdom? And then they are going to want to come over to where you got it from, okay? So wanted to give you some free game where that's concerned. Can't thank you enough for engaging with us throughout this series called Covenant 28. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And again, if that notification bell is not rung, hit that so that you ensure you know when we have new content. And of course, if you want to become a supporter of this ministry, to come alongside us financially and ensure that this kind of content continues, head on over to breathoflife.tv. This is good ground, and we're excited that you want to partner with us. We'll see you, family, next week. Go with God. Be blessed.